Good evening. It is April 23rd, 2024. Welcome to the San Marino Unified School District Board of Education meeting. Here is your board president, Shelley Ryan.
Thank you, Dr. Stephen Choi. And tonight there is nothing to report from closed session. Our regular open session now begins. It is 7:06. I'd like to call to order and I'd like to do roll call. Mrs. Lamb.
Here.
Mrs. Chong.
Here.
Mrs. Gill.
Here.
Mr. Chang.
Here.
Mrs. Ryan, I, and the student board member is on her way. Oh, is she here? No, she's on her way and she's just going to be a few minutes late. Dr. Richter, would you please introduce our student who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
It would be my pleasure, President Ryan. So tonight we have our very own senior from San Marino High School, Elijah Chin, to lead the board in the salute to the flag and share a little bit about himself and San Marino High School.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, hello, I'm Eli Chin. I'm a senior at San Marino High School. I've been at San Marino since I was in kindergarten, so it's kind of crazy that I'm leaving soon. So I've been very passionate about basketball my entire life. So coming into high school, that's what I knew I wanted to pursue. So all 4 years, I've played basketball at the high school, starting with freshman, and then my next year I played JV, and then these past 2 years I've been on varsity, and this year I was even nominated as the captain. So other than basketball, actually, sorry, my first 2 years I was really set on basketball, and that's all that I really did. But after my mom really encouraged me to explore other avenues, I got into robotics and ASB in my junior year. So robotics has been very fun for me. I'm on the business cabinet, which means I kind of like handle some like more finance and portion of it versus the engineering side and like graphic design. And so I do some of the Instagram posts that they do. But robotics has been very rewarding for me. It's very impressive to see the robot that these people like get together and build. And this year they even they made such a good robot that they got to the World Championships in Houston, where I was last week, and that was a really, really great experience. Yeah. And on the business side, something that's cool that they do is every year, recently they've been hosting these movie nights to raise money, to send kids with heart disease to a camp called Camp Del Corazon, where they actually have like the equipment and all the necessary things that they need so that they could feel kind of normal at a summer camp. ASB, I joined also in my junior year, and I was very reluctant to join, but my mom insisted again, and I'm really glad that I did it.
I want to meet your mom.
Yeah.
She seems so influential.
Yeah. Yeah, so sorry. So I was really happy after ASB because I've met some really cool people and I've done some really cool things with ASB, and just it's really cool being able to, have an idea for what you want the student body to take part in or an activity, and then you put in the work to make it come to fruition. So it's pretty fun, and just the friends you make is really great. So that's the main takeaway for me, is doing all these activities, is the friends that I made, because that's really what I take on when I move away from high school, and that's what I'm gonna miss. So
All
thank you.
right. Thank you so much.
Elijah, don't sit down yet, sweetie.
Eli, we're gonna ask you to stand right up here. We're gonna give you a certificate of appreciation for leading us in the pledge this evening and for telling us all about your mom. Who I just found out we know. And Annie Rochen is your mom.
Yes.
And Annie teaches TK at Valentine. She's been one of our most valued teachers forever. So it's great to see you. I remember you being about this high. Yeah, you've really grown up. So thank you for being here, and will the board please join us? We're gonna take a picture, and you don't mind what's supposed to do.
No.
Okay. And can we get one of those? Sarah, come on. I'll share with you.
We have three. 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you. Thank you for
Oh, it was good. That was something I
Thank you for telling me. I see it.
All right. Thank you so much, Elijah. Thank you for joining us and leading the Pledge of Allegiance. Next, I'd like to have for approval our agenda. May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Thank you,
Second.
Mrs. Lamb, and thank you, Mrs.
I did
Gill.
first.
You did first? All right, Mrs. Gill is first.
I shall
And
second.
Mrs. Lamb is second. All right, roll call to accept the motion. Mrs. Lamb,
Aye.
Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mrs. Gill,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, myself, I, and student board member is on her way. Approval of minutes for March 23rd, 24 Board of Education meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as was sent out and read?
I move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Chang, and thank you, Mrs. Chong. All right, so roll call, Mrs. Lamb,
Aye.
Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mrs. Gill,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
I, Mrs. Ryan, and the motion has passed for the minutes and the agenda. All right, San Marino Unified School District Student Spotlight. This is one of the favorite parts of our agenda. I'd like to turn it over now to our math teacher, our coach, Joseph Forte, and co-coach Richard Hollinger from San Marino High School. And they will introduce our San Marino High School math team. Welcome, come on in. You guys were talkative out there. Why also, come on, don't be shy.
Come on up to the front if you'd like, or yeah.
But who's speaking though? Is someone speaking? They're in the back.
They're coming.
Speakers,
They're
come
coming.
on to the front.
Around, all of you. Come on this way.
Yeah, over here.
Come on this way.
The Board of Education would like to
Right around. There you
recognize
go.
the San Marino High School math team for a successful season. May I have the speakers up at the podium? There you go. Come on in. Is everybody in? And then we can close the door. Everyone
Mr.
comes
Mr.
in.
Hollinger, if you want to join Mr. Buenavente in a Fuerte.
I'm gonna keep my president with me.
Yeah.
Keep the president. All right. Come on in, everyone.
My first time.
All right. Welcome and
We'll turn it over to you.
All right, hello, everyone. I am Joseph Peñafuerte. This is my 8th year coaching the team. We've always had a good team. We've always done, significantly better than average, but this is by far our most successful team. Brandon is our math team president. He's a senior headed to UCLA, and he's prepared a little speech to tell you more details about our success.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Brandon, and I'm a senior at San Marino High School, and I'm the president of the math team. So this year we had a very successful season. First off, in the annual AMC competition, which stands for the American Mathematics Competition, we had 8 AMY qualifiers to the next level, which is like the most in San Marino history. And in our annual Bay Math League competition, we placed 2nd overall out of 12 or 13 schools.
in in the Los Angeles region. And also at the Math Day at the Beach, which is another annual competition we go compete at. We also placed third. We placed third, getting a bronze. And we also like to recognize Evan for getting first place in the entire competition. I would just like to give a huge amount of thanks to the support we got from our two coaches, Mr. Pinoferte and Mr. Hollinger, and also from the San Marino High School for allowing us to travel around and compete throughout the year.
I would love to hear from the seniors where they're all going off to college, if you want to share.
Kathy, Ryan,
Come on up to share.
Ingrid, Howard.
Come on, seniors. Let's have my seniors. Here we go. Right, let's hear from the seniors. Say your name, where you think you're going.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ingrid, and I am also headed to UCLA.
Hi, I'm Kathy, and I'm headed to Brown.
I'm Ryan. I'm headed to Poly UC. I'm Howard. I'm probably going to Rose Holman.
I'm probably going to Purdue.
My name is Ayush, and I'm probably also going to Purdue.
My name is Kyle, and I'm probably going to Northeastern.
Congratulations to all of you. We do have certificates for each one of you, but there's so many of you. Mr. Hollinger has them and will pass them out. We're also giving certificates to Mr. Right there, and Mr. Hollinger for leading this amazing team. But your certificate says for outstanding performance, exemplary mathematical skills, and the exceptional ability to excel in challenging mathematical competitions. We are so proud of each and every one of you. Thank you so much for your hard work, your integrity, and being part of this wonderful accomplishment. So congratulations. And we're going to need to get a picture of you, and that's going to be challenging for some of you. But if we can get the tall people in the back right here. Tall, and challenge like me and Brent. And then we get the we need to move the chair down, maybe. People in the back. You want to picture right?
No, there's no point.
Yeah, I think we're okay. I think we're set.
Okay, well, I just have okay. All right, you guys, can you switch it just a little bit more? Everybody, get close, get close. And then, do you want to, oh, okay, down a little? No.
Everybody look right here in the center. We're count three. On the count of three. 1, 2, and 3. It's my good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, San Marino High School math team, for your season and coming to the board meeting. Public comment. The Board of Education has adopted Board Policy 9323B to ensure the public's right to be heard in any matters pertaining to the San Marino Unified School District. Persons who wish to provide public comment will have 3 options to submit public comments. First, you may submit through an online form. We did not receive any but if we had, it would have been shared with the board. Request to speak during the meeting via Zoom. Dr. Choi, do we have anyone on Zoom?
Yes, we do. President Ryan, we're going to go ahead and pause for 1 minute to take any requests to speak regarding matters that are either not on the agenda or items that are in the consent information as well as action sections of the agenda. So if you'd like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon or dial *9. Thirty seconds remain. If you'd like to make a request, please press the raise hand icon or dial *9. Okay, President Ryan, we have no requests.
Thank you. And the third option for public comment is to request to speak during the meeting in person via the public comment card. At this time, Jennifer, do we have any cards? All right. Thank you so much. And next we have the consent section. That is sections A to J. Do I have a motion to approve the consent section 9A through 9J?
Move to approve.
Second. Thank you, Mrs. Chong. Thank you, Mrs. Lamb. And so with that, I will do a roll. Oh, Mrs. Gill, thank you. Sorry, Mrs. Gill.
All on the same. It's just all from the side.
All on that side. Mrs. Lamb,
Aye.
Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mrs. Gill.
Aye.
Mr. Chang.
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, aye. And that's it. And the motion has passed to approve consent section 9A through 9J. Communication section, communication from the Board of Education. We ask that each board member take no more than 2 minutes to share their communication, and please do not repeat the same things that have been shared. All right, with that, we'll start with Mrs. Lamb.
Thank you. On April 4th, I attended Carver's open house. It was a lot of fun visiting the different classrooms and seeing the students' hard work in the past year showcased. There was also a fundraiser for the 5th graders, which was an excellent excuse to have some cookies and ice cream. So thank you for that. On April 16th, which was kind of a highlight for me, I did a school site visit with board member Jane Chon. Thank you to each of the principals for having us. I enjoyed seeing the students' engagement and witnessing the excellent work that our teachers do. On April 18th, I attended the Carver Dumpling Party held at the Chinese Club. Thank you to the PTA for having that event. It was a lot of fun. I've had a lot of dumplings in my lifetime, but I actually do not know how to make any dumplings. And my family often tries to pressure me to make them because there's always an event. And I'm always like, no, no, no. So I had to hide from them that I actually went to this dumpling party because they would not have liked that. No, but and all joking aside, it was really a fun event. So thank you for those that hosted. And on April 19th, I attended the Asian Pacific Islander School Board Member Association Mixer. that our board president graciously invited us to. It was a very lovely event and a very great opportunity to connect with other board members at neighboring school districts. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. All right, Mrs. John.
Yeah, so a couple other events that were on the calendar this month was the Boy Scouts Blue and Gold Dinner. A little shout out to Mr. Morris over there, which was fun because it was fun watching the kids bridge after, you know, culminating all these years of experience. And we have this great troop, and they tried something new where they were trying to invite people from other troops to make it a more community sort of event, not just Carver Boy Scouts. And then another thing I attended that I really enjoyed was the Partnership for Awareness talk with Kirsten Jones. She's the author of a book called Raising Empowered Athletes. And she spoke about how to support your child playing sports. And it got me thinking a lot about what we could do as a district to really cultivate a culture that develops students at all levels. So whether they are a new to the sport and they're trying it for the first time, maybe at elementary or the middle school or even the high school, or maybe they're a multi-sport athlete, or maybe they're an elite athlete. We have the whole entire spectrum in our district. And so thinking about how we can really help support them and make athletics accessible for everybody, and even working with, again, our community partners, because we have SMNL, we have Little League, we have the football, flag football, we have AYSO. And so all these great community partners that help build not just teamwork skills for the kids, but even developing their actual athletic skills, and then building that community interaction. So a lot of kids, when they're in elementary, may have played in Little League together. And then when they hit the middle school, they remember these kids. And so it really helps build that community that's so important.
Thank you, Mrs. Gill.
Thank you. I've done some of the same things as my counterparts here, including the Valentine open house, spring break, which was nice to get away with my family. Came back and went right to the FAC meeting, and also on the same day met with President Ryan, with our city council counterparts. We're really working towards a stronger synergy and emphasizing that our schools being strong really drive the value in the city. So that's really important to us. And we're just going to keep the lines of communication open. This weekend is actually, they're so jam-packed with school events. There's high school dancetra, Valentine May Day is on Friday, the Carver Carnival, and the Little League Home Run Derby on Sunday. So I'll have a lot to report next time.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Gill. Mr. Chang.
I attend the Valentine and the Carver open house, and then I went to Europe and visit the 3 countries. Yeah, the Germany, Switzerland, Australia, and I also visit the BMW headquarters. Yeah.
So he had ice cold beer. I saw pictures. All right.
Yeah, a lot of beer. Yeah.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Not a lot. A normal amount.
Normal amount of beer.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chang. So I'm not going to repeat, attended Founder's Day, FAC meetings. Thank you to Valentine and Carver for open house, and thank the teachers because they spend a lot of time preparing for these visits, and we just really enjoy seeing the kids and seeing the teachers and how excited everyone is about learning. I've done some equity training this past month. The city talk from the city manager, attended that online on Zoom, and the meeting with city council with council member Talt and Mr. Lowe, Calvin Lowe, with the city manager, again, trying to build out our relationship with the city. They are interested in using some of our facilities. So it'll be interesting to hear from our community, our school community, how that will be received. City Club, we heard Randy Schulman, and he presented on Mr. Huntington as a visionary, and he certainly was. at that, a forward thinker. San Marino Schools Foundation, Dr. Delatorre and I attended that, as well as I want to thank cabinet, every one of my cabinet and my superintendent, as well as many of our board members was able to attend the APISMA, Asian Pacific Islanders School Board Members Association, being hosted by the Huntington Library. We did that mixer, so that was really nice for all your support. Other school districts talk about their school district, but they shared with me last Friday, I've never seen the entire cabinet come out as well as board members on a social mixer, and they really enjoyed meeting all of you guys. So thank you for coming out and supporting. Fire department pancake breakfast, that was not to be missed. Logan enjoyed it very much. But also it was an opportunity to see the council members. I saw 4 council member as well as the city manager, the fire chief, the police chief there. And it was really nice, a sense of community, kind of everyone out having breakfast. All right, so with that, I'm going to pause the communication from the student board member and move to our superintendent, Dr. Delatorre.
Thank you, President Ryan, members of the Board of Education and executive team. I am very pleased to announce that there are 26 days of school left in this school year. Isn't that crazy to think about? 26 days.
Stressful.
Yeah, it is, right? But I can't believe how fast this year went by. And all of the work and all of the things that we've been able to accomplish. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my wonderful principals and assistant principals for all of their hard work and energy. You guys have done an amazing job this year. Thank you so much. And your teachers have been incredible, and we've just had a great year. And so please extend my sincerest appreciation to each and every one of them as well. I would also like to thank my cabinet for doing such an outstanding job. Everything that we planned to do last summer, we've been able to accomplish. So kudos to all of you. Their work ethic is beyond reproach. They show up, they lean into the work, and they're all experts in their areas of expertise. So I'm so grateful to be supported by such an outstanding team of professional experts. So thanks to all of you. And of course, Jennifer Delatorre down there, who
she keeps all of us together.
All of us in the upright position. She's amazing. And no, she's not related to me, but I wish she were. Because I love her last name. But we're not related. But thank you, Jennifer, for everything that you do for not only me, but for the Board of Education. And this board works tirelessly to support this community. And in our quest to connect with the city and build an even more cohesive relationship with them, I am meeting with the city manager tomorrow. We're going to have lunch.
Is on him.
Yeah. We're going to have lunch and talk about items that are of mutual interest. So as President Ryan was mentioning, we had a meeting with the city council liaisons to the school district and board clerk Francesca Gill and board president Shelley Ryan to talk about items of mutual interest as well. And facilities were brought up and we did discuss that. So we are trying to find ways that we can collaborate together and really help to support and serve our community, which I am confident is going to be successful. So we look forward to bringing information back on that. And I just quickly want to say thank you to the Facilities Advisory Committee, and we're going to hear from them a little bit later. But Mr. Morris, sitting here, has led the group as chairperson. And you see members of the Facilities Advisory Committee sitting in the back. Thank you so very much for your hard work. This group of dedicated community members have worked for 15 months. They're showing up and they're really using their areas of expertise and their knowledge and their experience to really help us to plan and prepare for a potential bond. So thank you. And I'm sure the board will express their gratitude.
That was my part that
Sorry,
you
I'm
already
so
did.
sorry.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
So-
I knew I wasn't going to get a chance to thank them. So thank you.
All right, so, but with that, I know we would be remiss if we did not thank Dr. Lin as well as Dr. Choi for stepping up to also support the FAC. And with that, I I'm going to call on Jeff. I would like to introduce Mr. Jeff Morris. He is our leader in the Facilities Advisory Committee to provide the board with a Facilities Advisory Committee findings and recommendation report. Would you, Jeff, would you introduce some of your 4 members that are here?
I would love to. Paul Callahan, Bob Horgan, Michelle Espenshade, and Ted Lee. I apologize. I was going to say another name, but that was it. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate you being here. We are but 1/3 of the committee. There were many people that contributed to this and participated and lent their time and their professional expertise. And I think you'll hear that, or you've witnessed through attending meetings that there's been a lot of really well-informed opinions offered and thoughts that have gone into this recommendation. And so while what you'll see here tonight is just a presentation, we do intend to follow up with a more formal document later this week with these findings and recommendations in them.
All right, thank you.
School board president Ryan, members of the board, district leadership team. I'm really pleased to represent the FAC here today and to present our thoughts on the present and future facility priorities. What you'll hear about today are a review of sort of our focused high priority needs that we saw ourselves through touring the facilities and reviewing documents, but also through our participation working with LPA, the district's consultant, who prepared the facilities master plan. And then I'm going to go through a series of recommendations. So the first will be projects that we believe will address those high priority needs. And then a few other recommendations for asset management to help with maintenance planning for future maintenance needs, different financing methods to pay for these projects, the timing and implementation of the financing methods, and also some project thoughts. And then also I'll touch on recommendations for oversight and community engagement. And then we'll have some acknowledgements at the end because there were many people to acknowledge. So the top priorities that we saw, and there's a lot of words here, I apologize, I will go through them. There were lots of other identified priorities, but we're just going to focus on the top ones for now. There's lots of equipment facilities that are past their useful life in the form of HVAC, roofs, painting, flooring, electrical gear, athletic surfaces. There's aging underground utilities. We've seen issues crop up with water leaks at the high school this year. We've had issues with HVAC plumbing that runs underground at Carver in the past. We've had issues with storm drains, notably last year with the rain events and flooding at Huntington and at the other school sites. There are safety and security needs in the form of cracked playground surfaces at the elementary schools in particular, dim exterior lighting, some incomplete perimeter fencing at a few of the school sites, and things like manual door locks that we might not think about, but in the modern era of education, it's very nice to be able to lock all the doors at once if needed in the event of an emergency. There's particularly at Valentine, there's insufficient assembly space. Their multipurpose room only seats about 200 people. So when there are assemblies, when there are school programs with you want to be able to bring the parents in and see the kids perform, there's just not enough space to host enough people in there. There's also food service challenges at Valentine. They don't have food service locally on site there, and there are undersized lunch courts at both elementary schools. There is insufficient permanent learning space. By that, I mean, we're relying too much on portables, temporary portables that are way past their expected useful life. There's many of them at Valentine, several at Carver, and there's even a few at Huntington still being used. And then there's a need for sort of the overall student experience and some improved wellness. relatively minor, but they could use some better spaces for wellness and counseling at the elementary schools. And there is a lack of sufficient shade on several of the playgrounds throughout the district. And then we have anticipated future connectivity and classroom technology upgrades that are going to be necessary to keep up with the educational needs and the educational programs going forward. We also identified some what we called secondary priorities, and it's tough to call them secondary because they really are big areas of need. But as you'll see, they are very large. There's aging, visual and performing arts, rehearsal and performing arts and performance space at the high school. You know, there's a need for technology and wiring upgrades and HVAC upgrades in the auditorium and the little theater. And there's also aging and undersized athletic spaces at the high school. The pool isn't large enough for CIF competition. The gym space is in high demand. And there's a lack of air conditioning in the gyms when many of our competitors in the Rio Hondo League have air conditioning in their gyms for comfort. Now, unfortunately, both of these areas of the campus are structures that are on a California state list. It's known as the AB 300 list of cast in place concrete structures that would require seismic upgrades if a significant amount of work is done in either of them. And because of their proximity to an earthquake fault, those seismic upgrades would be prohibitively costly. And so we might be able to do some minor things there, but those two areas of the campus really at some point are going to need to get rethought and reworked. And you have to think about them as sort of integrated units with the gyms and the pool and how everything works together in that part of the campus. And that drives a significant cost. And if we were to prioritize those, we were given this $200 million bond, which comes down to 135 million roughly budgetary cap on projects, which we talked about the last time I was here. If we prioritized those one or both of those major projects at the high school, that would dominate the potential funding, and it would severely hamper the district in its ability to address the needs elsewhere. So we kind of set those aside as secondary priorities, and we'll come back to those in a minute. So now we're going to get into some recommended projects, and these we worked with the list that LPA developed as part of the facilities master plan. And the last time I was in here, I talked to you about our initial prioritization process, where we looked at projects by category. And when we got together following that initial prioritization, we thought, gosh, we didn't feel we had enough money allocated to needs at the high school, to address needs at the high school. So we came back together, we went through a painstaking process, line by line, looking at each individual project to try to reprioritize things and be able to address more needs at the high school. In this list, there is no prioritization within it. These are all the projects that we feel are the top priorities that a hypothetical $200 million bond should go to fund. And so in no apparent order, or in no particular order, rather, we have, site utility replacements and upgrades at all 4 schools, completed perimeter fencing, repairs to existing gates and fencing, electronic classroom door locks, emergency signage, better outdoor lighting, some repaving and parking lot improvements, improved elementary drop-off areas, ADA accessibility that would be required to come along with any other significant project work. We've got new elementary school classrooms to replace portables. We've got expanded lunch courts at the elementary schools, roof replacements where needed, playground repaving at the elementary schools where we've got significant damage, classroom technology and backbone communication technology upgrades. We've got HVAC replacements that are much needed, We've got a reconfigured and expanded library at Valentine because of that undersized facility. And then moving forward into our second page here, we've got improvements to the TK and kindergarten play yards at the elementary schools, shade structures that incorporate photovoltaic solar power across all 4 schools. You'll see modernize, and I've italicized some classrooms at all 4 schools. And the reason for that is the initial project list that LPA gave us had one big bucket for modernized classrooms at each school. And as we were looking around the room and trying to reprioritize and find some funding for other needs, we felt there was a lot of classrooms in the district that are pretty modern already. They're in pretty good shape. We didn't feel they were maybe in need of full modernization. And so we cut that budget down in order to make space for other areas of need. And so that's why you see that modernize some classrooms at all 4 schools. In particular, we do have classroom upgrades to support the medical arts pathway at SMHS because of some of the specialized needs associated with that program. And that's being sort of a marquee program. We have a tennis court rehab and expansion at SMHS so that we can host proper tennis tournaments. We're 1 court shy right now. And we would need to find space for that 5th or that extra court, I guess 6th court to really be able to host a proper tournament. And another thing we have in here is a new restrooms and team room and concession building at SMHS Titan Stadium. Now this one, you might ask, well, what's the priority of that? This is a highly public facing facility. It's in really bad shape right now. Nobody wants to use the restrooms. And whenever we host visiting teams, this is something that gets used. This is something the teams use, our teams use. And it's a standalone structure that is that can serve a lot of purposes for our athletic teams and our band, our marching band, and other things that we host on the Titan Stadium. We have new field lighting at SMHS, particularly for the baseball and softball diamonds. We have replaced the track surface and the field turf at SMHS, which are both nearing the end of their useful life and are going to be in need of replacement to continue being used. And then we have the multipurpose room and food service building at Valentine, which we talked about being a need. They have a lack of space for those things right now. So as a reminder, these are what the FAC feels should be prioritized if a $200 million bond would be passed. Now, looking at cost distribution per school, and again, a lot of numbers on this, it's a little bit small, but this, I wanted to be able to highlight how things are distributed in the priorities that I presented today. So I talked about $135 million suggested cap. You'll see here that we're actually showing about $138.5 million in projects that we've prioritized. I'll cover that gap in a minute. It was very challenging to cut down any further, and we think we've identified some areas where we can bridge that gap with other funding sources. But of this $138.5 million, we've got a little less than $30 million allocated towards Carver, about $18 million at Huntington, a little more than $33 million towards the high school, and about $57.5 million for Valentine. The reason behind some of those much larger numbers is because those are sites where we've got new construction, and new construction for new buildings is always going to be more expensive than modernization. So that's why you see the $57 million number at Valentine. That's dominated by the multipurpose room and a little bit larger new classroom building there to replace their portables that they're using. So I mentioned earlier this $3.5 million difference between the target we were shooting for, which is $135 million, and what we ended up at, which is $138.5 million. So it was so difficult to drop. And then we started talking about, well, where else could we identify some potential funding sources? We thought that participating with the PTAs and partnering with the PTAs at each of the school sites could be a potential source for funding smaller projects. PTAs have had really good success at raising money for specific needs at their school site, and things like maybe a play structure or something in that maybe $20,000 to $50,000 range might be opportunities over several years to partner with the PTAs and identify funding and raise funding through private contributions for some of these smaller projects at the school sites. We also thought that there may be some opportunities in here with some of these facilities. Perhaps the MPR, the multipurpose room at Valentine, would be the best example of this, to raise private funding with potential for naming rights. The district has had success with that in the past, but we know that the upper limit of these private fundraising sources usually tends to be in the maybe $5 million range. So through those couple of sources of private funding, we think that we can bridge that $3.5 million gap between these two. And you can see with this how if we had prioritized one of the major athletic project or the major arts project at the high school, which were each, I think, $40 to $60 million, it would have significantly cut into our ability to fund projects at other school sites. Other recommendations that we'd like to make for asset management and future maintenance. So we've seen that the district has a significant amount of deferred maintenance needs, millions of dollars worth of projects that need to get done. And these are projects that we can oftentimes predict or project forward because we know, for instance, how long a roof is intended to last, or how long playground paving is intended to last, or an HVAC unit. And so we think it's important to be able to set aside a small amount of funding to invest in some sort of a program to manage the district's assets. And this is the perfect opportunity, the perfect time to do it is when you have a lot of new assets coming in at once through capital improvements. What you can do with this is build in a schedule. You know, for instance, how long the roof is going to last and how much it's going to cost. And you can look at what your cash flow needs are going to be over a 20-year span with that information in mind and start thinking about how to plan for funding that preventative maintenance so you don't get into a situation with a buildup of millions and millions of dollars of deferred maintenance. Let's see. Other recommendations. So financing options. How do we come up with this much money? There's not many options. There's private sources. I've talked a minute ago about our kind of upper limit for private fundraising has been about 5 million in the past. The only way, the most reliable way to fund capital improvements this large is through a general obligation bond that's put to the voters. So the district has looked at a $200 million bond. We've heard presentations from the district's financial advisors and from other funding source professionals. And we see this specifically a Prop 39 general obligation bond as the best method to meet the district's needs to fund them. The Prop 39 general obligation bond must be put on a ballot either in presidential election years or in midterm election years. So even numbered years. 2024 is one of those. The next opportunity for a general obligation bond like this to be put on the ballot would be in 2026. The district has existing bond repayments from the previous projects in 2000 that will be finished being paid off in 2025. This is the best opportunity this year to put a bond issue on the ballot to raise this sort of capital to fund the district's facility needs. Now, another thing that came out of our meetings and our deliberations is how are we going to address these two big looming needs at SMHS, arts and athletics? And so a creative thought that we had was, we think the district should, in several years, consider a second bond. This one would be focused on arts and athletics. It may give more time for the district to build consensus, to build support for these. But we think this is something that should be considered at the very least. I mentioned timing a minute ago of when a Prop 39 bond would need to go on the ballot, being an even numbered years. Another thing that is important to consider with timing is that construction costs are only going up. We looked at these we looked at cost estimates for some of these projects several years ago, and they're considerably higher today than they were just in 2020. And if we project forward 2, 4, 6, 8 years, those costs are going to be 20 to 30% higher down the road. So we think that the November 2024 election is the best time for the district to consider putting a bond issue on the ballot. As far as the timing and implementation of actual projects, that would really need to be determined once projects get into more of a detailed design, and you're working with a consultant to plan out the overall program once funding would be secured for those projects. Now, there are many projects on this list that could probably get pushed through that don't require Division of State Architect approval because they're repairs or they're maintenance projects. Those could be prioritized first in any sort of a program. And we think that should be, these are deferred maintenance that have been needed for many years. We have leaks, we have other things that could be replaced on a shorter time span, and those should be prioritized first. We should also, for those larger construction projects, new buildings, we should get started designing those early so that we can get them in the DSA approval pipeline, get those plans in the state approval pipeline to be able to move those forward as soon as we can. Another thing with getting those done, and this goes back to funding, and I neglected to mention this, I apologize, but the ability to qualify for matching funds. The district has a track record of success with qualifying for matching funds for capital projects, and we see no reason for that would end. We think that we should go out, we should identify the most opportunities for matching funds. We believe the state is going to be putting an educational bond issue on the ballot in November as well. That would make more funding available for matching funds, but we have to come to the table with our own funds to qualify for those. So that's why it's important for us to raise that capital to qualify. Now, anytime that public funds are spent, it's really important to have proper oversight of the spending of those funds. Under Proposition 39, general obligation bonds, it requires a Citizens Oversight Committee. And that oversight committee must include a representative from a local business organization, a taxpayers organization, a senior citizens organization, a parent or guardian of a student, and at least one parent who's active in supporting the district, a PTA member or somebody from the school site council. Those are the minimum requirements for the Citizens Oversight Committee for a Prop 39 bond issue. And this oversight committee is tasked with making sure on an annual or biannual basis or semi-annual basis that the funds that were raised that are from public sources are being spent in ways and on projects that they're qualified to be spent on under the terms of the bond that was passed by the voters. We believe that it would be in the district's best interest to name members of that committee before a potential bond election. This would be a commitment that the district would make to the community to show we've put the foresight into this, and we think we've got the right people that the community can support in overseeing the spending of the public funds. We also think that any sort of design work that's done needs to be, they need to design to a construction budget. And by that, I mean, everything that's put into the design, they need to be thinking about how's that going to affect the final price of when this project gets built. So that could be incorporating things like value engineering techniques into the design process to make sure that we're controlling our spend as much as possible. And if we can get in under the cost estimates on some of these projects, then we're in better shape to be able to fund other work. Another commitment that the district can make is to make sure that they hire a third-party professional to help administer and manage the design and construction process. I think it would be a good show to the public that the district administration is not going to be distracted by anything like this. It's important for the district administration to remain focused on programs, on curriculum, on supporting the 4As for our students. And we don't want people getting pulled away for construction administration stuff. So funding from the bond can pay for a part-time or full-time person to help administer the program if needed. And I think that would be a good way for the district to remain focused on the things that you should be focused on. Now, community engagement. So even though if the district passes a bond resolution to put a bond measure on the November ballot, once that resolution is passed, certain communication restrictions are in place. The district can't advocate on behalf of or against the measure that would be put on the ballot. And however, even though that the engagement with the community needs to change, that doesn't mean it stops. It's critical to continue engaging the community. We have a highly involved community in San Marino that cares deeply about the schools. They want to see the right things done. So we need to continue hosting facility tours, multiple tours to make sure that the public can see facilities for themselves. We need to continue with either open house or town hall meetings so that we can share these priorities over and over again and make sure we reach as many people. And another thing that might be useful is to put together a sort of task force to look at facility use. We heard earlier this meeting that there are some talks between the city and the district about ways the city may be interested in using the district's facilities. We heard from Gil at the district and others about how the district doesn't necessarily recoup all of their costs when outside groups use the facilities. And so we need to take a closer look at that. We need to commit to the public that any new facilities, we're going to make sure we offset the costs with facility usage fees. And if we can set up a tiered rate structure for nonprofit groups or in-town groups to give priority, I think that's something we should look at. But that would really require an in-depth look by a focused task force. And I need to make sure I acknowledge all the members of the Facilities Advisory Committee, the board liaisons to the FAC, Ms. Ryan and Ms. Gill, and Ms. Chon, who was our liaison last year, district leadership who attended, I think, every single one of our meetings. Dr. De La Torre, Dr. Lin, Dr. Choi, Dr. Richter, Mr. Cardenas. Thank you for your time and the input you lent into this process. We could not have done it without all of your participation. The school site principals, we really, really appreciate your input to this process and sharing your priorities in managing your sites. And also, we'd like to thank LPA, Rick, Joe May, and then Nicole and Ozzy who participated in a town hall. And special thanks to Jennifer De La Torre for setting up meetings and schedules. Lots of help. And there was lots of others too. There were school site committees that contributed to this, community groups that came that shared input to the FMP process. Joy from Team Civics, Jenny and Chris from KeyGent, and Chet, and Chris Nolan, the district's consultant on construction. The bond legal consultant, Samuel Santana, David Erie, the high school athletic director, lended a lot of input, and even the former school site principals, Jason Kurtenbach and Daryl Topalian, were very involved last year in this. So lots of thanks to go around.
Jeff, that was well done, and thank you so much for presenting to us. I want to provide an opportunity for the board to ask questions or to maybe get some clarification if they have any need. So with that, anybody want to kind of weigh in on the work? I know several of us have participated for the last 15 months, and talk about dedication. I know you have young kids at home, but to give up that time, and then our FAC is here representing. Any additional comments you want to also share with us? Maybe the process you went through, or any of that? Paul, you're never at a loss for words. Yeah. He doesn't even know what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, we're all doing this. Okay. All right. Anyone else? No? Okay, Mr. Chang.
First of all, thank you so much for your leadership to lead for the FAC. I think this is the big deal to the community and also to the school district. Even I'm already working for school board 23 years, but last two bond was before I installed as the board member. So after 2 decades, I think it's the time, we need to improve our facility. So I have a question. I'm very straightforward. I just like to ask, among all the FAC committee members, is that they have a consensus, everyone, they like to suggest have another bond?
Yes.
Yes, right, 100%.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No other? Okay.
Well, I wanted to say thank you. I want to say thank you to the staff too, because I think they put a lot of work into this. And I think aligning it to what we do as a school district, I think was a big piece of it that we don't necessarily think about, but I think that was really underlying every decision that we made was how is this going to translate into the experience for the students? And it got me thinking about, as we're looking at the prioritization. So what I was looking at was, what did the FAC come up with? And that was an interesting process because it kept changing every time we met, and it was little tweaks here and there. There were things that were consistent over and over and over: the bones, the undergirds, the not pretty things that nobody sees. And I think everybody agreed on that. But then when we got down to like the million here and the million there, I think that's where there was a lot of healthy conversations. And I think like we even saw with us as we did it, there was a lot of healthy conversations around that. And it got me thinking about what are going to be some of those frameworks that we're going to use, because the work doesn't stop with the passage of the bond or resolution or the passage of the bond itself, as it goes into prioritization and implementation. And I started thinking about our board goals. And it made me kick back to, you know, our number one thing is safety and wellness of our students, to be fiscally responsible and sustainable for the future. The culture of service, value, and appreciation for our community, our staff, our parents, our students, and then preparing our students to be high quality global citizens. So how do we translate that framework that we've been using to drive us as a district into how do we prioritize what we're going to do first? How do we prioritize where the money's going to go? Barring a catastrophic event, you know, how do we think about what we do first? And I think putting a framework around it will be helpful. Not so much a question. So I guess here's my question for you. So how do you see sort of some of the work that you've done to sort of help us think about some of the frameworks? I think some of it may be that top priority, second priority. What are you thinking?
Well, you mentioned safety and security of the students being a top priority, and you mentioned fiscal responsibility in particular. And I think that that you can tie several of the projects that we've prioritized directly to those two principles. And those also happen to be the projects that are not likely to require DSA approval, because they're repairs, they're maintenance. And so I think it's easy to be able to go down that list and say, those projects are going to be prioritized. They're also shorter term projects too. Many of them can get accomplished over a summer. They don't impact the school year quite so much. That gives you time to then plan the rest of the program, that where some of that may require temporary student housing and some other reconfiguration of campuses to accommodate construction projects.
Or maybe even the summer too, because I know when we had Barth under construction, we had to move the summer stuff to Carver, right? So if we're going to do work in the summer, then thinking about how that might play out.
So thank you, Jeff. I want to thank you and the FAC committee and all of our visitors. If there are no other questions, I'm going to move on in our agenda. I do want to call on Megan. If you want to present, we went through the communication section already. So if you want to present.
All right. First of all, I would like to apologize for my tardiness. I was at a school activity at the high school just now, but I'll make this quick. So on the elementary side for Carver and Valentine, we're wrapping up April with our fun community-wide events. So that would be May Day for Valentine, Carver Carnival for Carver, which I will be volunteering at if anyone is going, and starting off May with staff appreciation for both of the respective elementary schools. For the middle school, kind of the same gist, ending April and starting with May with PTA grade dance and all grade dance. And now going to the high school, which is always my favorite part. We have a lot going on this week with our summer internship fair going on tomorrow, as well as our ASB election assembly on Friday. So you'll have a new student board member soon. And next week, we have our first ever Pie a Teacher fundraiser, which I've mentioned at the last meeting, but so excited. And then, of course, how could I give a report without mentioning the very exciting show happening at the high school this week, Dance Cetra. It's our last dance show of the year and the biggest community-wide of dancers from the high school, middle school, teachers. It's going to be a whole thing. I hope to see you all there. Special shout out to Dr. Wolf and Mrs. Penelora for appearing in a little promotional video that went up on Instagram today. The feedback is amazing. Everyone's loving it. I'm getting texts like, Megan, this is everything. Oh my gosh, you're best friends with the principal. It's so cute. Can it be pulled up if it's on Instagram?
My wife has already sent it to everyone.
Whoa. No, it's like the cutest little thing. If I send a link, would that work? Possibly. This is so.
We'll show that in a second while he's working on that, but I do want to, have you finished your report?
And yeah, that's
Okay.
what's happening in the
Thank
district
you,
this week.
thank you, Megan. I do want to turn it over and keep us on our agenda with proclamation number 1, California Day of the Teacher, which is coming up on May 7th. I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Jason Rose to present the proclamation to us.
All right, thank you. Good evening, President Ryan, Board of Education, Superintendent Dr. Delatorre, Executive Cabinet, and Student Board Member. Each year around this time, we like to bring attention to all the hard work that our classroom teachers have invested in our students and families. One way to do this is by honoring our teachers by proclaiming May 7th, 2024 as California Day of the Teacher. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas an educated citizenry serves as the foundation of our democracy, and whereas today's teachers mold the minds and train the workforce of the future, and whereas no other profession touches as many people with such a lasting effect, and whereas good teaching grows in value and pays dividends far beyond the classroom, and whereas excellence in our state begins with California's teachers, and whereas California's teachers are among the best educated, most credentialed, and hardest working educators in the country, therefore the San Marino Unified School District hereby proclaims Tuesday, May 7th, 2024 as the California Day of the Teacher. We urge all San Marino citizens to observe this day by taking time to remember and honor those San Marino Unified School District teachers who give the gift of knowledge through teaching.
Wow, thank you. And we know our teachers are here because of their passion for teaching and learning, and we're so grateful to them as they have come along and helped us with the education of our students. I think you have another proclamation. That's number 2, California School Employees Association, the CSEA Classified School Employee Week, which will occur May 19th to 25th, Sunday to a Saturday. Okay, very nice. Jason, I would like to turn it over to you to present proclamation number 2.
All right. My second item for you tonight is also to shine a light on our classified staff and honor their dedication and hard work in their service of our students and families. One way in which we do this is to proclaim the week of May 19th through May 25th, 2024 as Classified Appreciation Week. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas classified professionals provide valuable services to the schools and students of the San Marino Unified School District, and whereas classified professionals contribute to the establishment and promotion of a positive instructional environment, and whereas classified professionals serve a vital role in providing for the welfare and safety of San Marino Unified School District students, and whereas classified professionals employed by the San Marino Unified School District strive for excellence in all areas relative to the educational community, therefore the San Marino Unified School District hereby proclaims the week of Sunday, May 19th through Saturday, May 25th, 2024 as Classified School Employee Week, and wishes to honor the contribution of the classified professionals to quality education in the state of California and in the San Marino Unified School District. And that is it. Thank you.
So again, a large debt for their service and their dedication to our schools and to our children. Thank you, Dr. Rose. Next, we have action items, but Dr. Choi, do you have what Megan is asking you to share with us?
I emailed
Oh.
you an MP4, if that can play.
Okay. You sent it, Megan?
Yes, I emailed it ss.choi@smusd.u.
The anticipation is.
It's so short, but so
It's very
sweet.
short. Another hidden talent.
Blushing.
Okay. Is it for Dancing with the Stars? Is
Yeah.
it gonna go that level? Okay.
So I taught them like bits and pieces of a dance that we recently competed, that
Mhm.
won first at our jazz division.
How long did it
Oh,
teach you to?
I was gonna
Yes.
say.
How long
Oh my
did it
gosh.
take?
The facials were brought.
There we go.
There you go.
The
Okay, there
talent
you
was
go.
amazing. I loved it.
Raw talent.
You too.
Very cute. Good job. All right.
You guys want to be?
Moving on.
All right, thank you, Ben, Sarah, thank you. So with that fun intermission, we'd like to move on to our action item. Board members, these are action items. I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Michael Lin to present the audited financial statements as of June 30th, 2023 of last year to the Board of Education for our approval.
Thank you, President Ryan. I'm sure the audit report is just as stunning. And I'm not gonna choreograph to that audit report, but thank you again for President Ryan, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Dr. Delatorre, the executive team, and student member Megan. Item 12A is an action item. With here this evening is our independent auditor from Clifton Lawson Allen, Mr. Taylor Ulrich, who will present the SMUSD's audited financial statements for the 22-23 school year. Mr. Ulrich, it's all yours.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to present the results of the 22-23 audit report. The audit is a culmination of several hundred hours of work on our staff to provide the nearly 100-page document that you have in front of you, which I just want to point out too that although we primarily work with the business office to get the financial data that we need, there's a lot of compliance things that we require us to do, where we're also reaching out to the technology as well as ed services and even your school sites where we have to go in and verify attendance is done properly and things. So it really is a district-wide audit, and we're really reaching out to a lot of different departments and people, and it's a whole district effort to get the audit report to where it's at. So like I said, it's a 90-page report. I'm just going to hit the highlights of it. I'm sure you'll be happy about that. Okay. So just a quick audit purpose. The purpose of the audit is to issue an opinion on the fairness of the financial statements. So those financial statements and notes and information in front of you, whether or not that it's reasonable and it's in line with the proper accounting principles. It's required by Ed Code as well as the California Department of Ed and the State Controller's Office require it. And the Educated Audit Appeals Panel of California, as well as the OM, the Office of Management and Budget, all require this audit. So a lot of people, as well as it's just a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the funds are spent accordingly and presented properly. So with that 90-page document, I'm just going to touch on the 4 parts that are really ours as independent auditors, and that's the 4 opinions that we provide to as part of the report. The first one is the main one. It's our overall report on the financial statements and whether those numbers and notes are reasonable and in line with proper accounting principles. Since you're a governmental entity, we also issue another opinion on whether or not the internal controls are appropriate and whether we have found any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies on the financial statements or on non-compliance. As a third letter we provide, or opinion we provide, is related to because you receive so much funding from the federal government, they require their own separate compliance review that we look at major programs that you're receiving and do various compliance steps with that and give an opinion there. And then, not to be outdone, the state of California said, let's get involved too. And so they have a list of, it's up to 36 different various programs, not all apply to your district, thankfully, but 36 various programs that they ask us to come in and review compliance steps as well and give an opinion on. So I'm going to touch on those. Real quick, the type of audit opinions we can give. An unmodified would mean that everything's presented fairly and in line with proper accounting principles. And you can see going down the different levels, whether there's exceptions or adverse or disclaimer, the really bad things. Thankfully, for your report on the financial statements, we were able to give an unmodified opinion. This is the highest opinion that an audit firm can provide. And it means that the numbers and financial statement numbers and their notes are fairly stated and in line with proper accounting principles and standards. With regard to the governmental letter or opinion that we give, we also were able to report that we did not have any material weaknesses in the financial statements or on compliance, and we're able to give a clean opinion there. With regard to the major programs, there's a a formula that we have to do to determine which programs we tested this year. It was the child nutrition program, as well as the education stabilization fund, those new funds from coming out of the COVID. And we were able to give clean opinions there. Those programs were, we did not have any significant, we didn't have any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in compliance related there. So another clean opinion as it related to the federal funding audit. And then lastly, the state compliance. You can look at page 82 for all 36 of those programs that I was mentioning, and whether or not we tested it, and we were able to give a clean opinion there as well, that there was no material or significant deficiencies in the compliance that we tested. I do want to point out with that, there are certain things that they require us to report on when there is something that's out of compliance, but this did not modify our opinion. So there were two findings, one related to the classroom teacher salaries, which is required to spend at least 55%. And you can see they're just barely short of that at 54.37%. As well as there was a new program for the school transportation that required a plan to be presented by a certain deadline. And the district did present the plan, and it just did not make it by that cutoff deadline. And so again, it didn't modify our opinion at all, but we are required to report and put that in the audit report. And then lastly, just a quick, these numbers are what you would have received back in September as part of the unaudited actuals. There was a very minor, I think it was about $2,000 difference between those numbers, just as they were implementing new, there was a new accounting standard related to leases and subscription-based technology arrangements. Way boring stuff, but it just made the presentation a little bit different, and we were working with the district on that. It just was not ready in time for unaudited actuals, and you can see it was only a $2,000 difference, so not significant. As well as our standards would require us to disclose any significant disagreements or issues or findings or fraud or things of that nature that we would have come across, and we were able to give you guys a letter that reported that there was none of those such things. So a very clean audit, and yeah, that's the end of my presentation. I just want to again thank Dr. Lin and his staff for all the work. Again, a lot of hours, a lot of requests, a lot of things to get us to be able to give the opinions and present the report in this way. And again, it was a very clean report. We're happy to present that.
All right. Thank you so much for coming in and talking with us and for your hours support as well. Thank you. And so with that, I'm hoping there's no questions or comments. Oh, you do, Mr. Chang? Okay.
Okay, can we turn into the page 30? The note 5, lease receivable. So maybe Dr. Lin, you can help to explain, is that this the parking lot lease, right? But how come they accumulate the interest each year?
Oh, it's not, it's part of the standard. Is because you entered into an agreement that's for a multi-year. Some of that is going to be interest revenue being received. So these numbers are reporting this is money that you're receiving each year, and some of it would be lease revenue, and others would be interest revenue on that agreement that you signed. This was actually one of the standards that I had mentioned earlier related to the lease and just the new way of accounting for it. 2 years ago, you wouldn't even, or a year ago, you wouldn't even have reported this in this way. But now, because of the new standard that came out, it's reported on your financials. But it's not interest you're paying; it's interest you're basically collecting based on the way the agreement's written. A portion of that's lease, another portion is the interest revenue.
Okay, and then the page 35, note 10, certificate of participation. So assume we continue to pay. So why the 2029 to 2033, the interest will be much higher than the rest of, if you look at the interest column, they can accumulate to the 1 million.
That's a span of 4 years, 2029 to 2033.
The other ones are single years. Right. See, 2027, 2028, they're single years.
Yeah, but that's about the 4 year, right?
It's 5 years, actually.
Oh, 5 years.
5 year, okay.
Including
But
29.
then the 2034 to 38, only about 634,000. It's a big difference.
Yeah, that's the repayment schedule
Uh-huh.
that we agreed to when we initiated the certificate of participation in 2017. So that is based on our repayment schedule, unless Taylor, you have.
No, just
What
it's
detail
very
about
common as you're paying down the principal, the interest costs are going to go down.
Decreases.
Okay, and then the page 54. The expenditure, capital outlay. So capital outlay is about 1.1 million. So what is a capital outlay? The expenditure.
It's on page 54.
Yeah.
Under expenditures.
For actuals.
Oh, capital outlay. So this is capital that maintenance operations will use. We're talking about actual machinery, the lawnmower. We have lifts that we lease. So those would be the capital that we spend on.
Okay. Sorry, not a question because when I come back, I cannot sleep. So
Insomnia.
Okay, the page 82.
It's not the beer. What page are you on?
82, yeah. So if you look at the description, so we have a expanded learning opportunity grant, but we do not have a career technical education incentive grant. Is that future we can apply or not?
Yes, we can look into it and apply for that, the CTIG grant, yes.
But for the expanded learning opportunity grant, how much we get?
I would have to go back and look at it.
Oh,
We
okay,
received
yeah.
it, I believe, two years ago. Yes.
I don't remember off the top of
I don't remember off the top of my head. We have a lot of grants.
Okay, and then the page 86, this is the last question. So the last question, they said audited qualify as a low risk audit, and they mark no. What do you mean?
So back to the federal government issues, are compliance things that we have to look at as part of since you received so much funding. And that's actually based on a calculation of the 2 prior audit years. And there were 2 reasons why. I think it was in 21-22, there was a audit adjustment. So there was a material correction to the financial statements. So that would have caused you to be not considered a low risk auditee for the federal government calculation part. All that really does is it just increases the number of programs we have to test. So the formula, when it comes down to if you're a low risk auditee, there's a certain percentage of coverage we have to test. And if you're high risk, then it increases. And so we would have to test more. So that might have been maybe, I'd have to look at the numbers. Maybe we would have had to test 1 less program. But probably not, actually. It's a complicated calculation. So I think we still would have had to look at the same 2 programs, but that's the only way it really impacts it.
That's it. Thank you.
All right.
I have a
Thank you
quick
so much.
question
Go ahead.
About how we came to that small discrepancy of the 55% and can we do anything about it without being fined?
Yeah, there's some.
Yes, I sent an email to the board and we will be asking for a waiver. And I believe Dr. Lynn has something on the agenda,
Yes,
right?
it's on the
tonight, that
agenda.
He will be presenting to the board with a full explanation about how we approach that. And we're not alone.
Lots of
It's just, it's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
So we're so
one-time money.
close. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can agree with that.
Yeah.
As I audit a lot of other school districts, many of them had struggled with that calculation,
And
especially this last year.
if not for all the one-time funds, we wouldn't even be in this situation, right? So it's simply because we receive so many one-time funds, our expenditures have gone up. I would say even exponentially, right? I mean, as compared to a normal
Right.
Yes.
year. And so that's why we're less than 55% in terms of the amount that we're spending on teacher salaries.
That legislation was created without understanding that pandemics happen.
Mhm.
And these large influxes of one-time funds will have to be spent. In a way, I'm saying it in a negative, but really it was great
Right.
getting those one-time funds, just that it increased the total expenditure. And as a district, we didn't spend one-time funds on people.
Right.
Whereas other districts did, and now they're laying
Right.
off people.
And now they're having to lay off those people and we're not having to lay off teachers. So we're kind of being punished for doing what I would say is the right thing, but that's not unlike the state, so. Right? And even the auditor agrees
Yeah.
with me.
I would say, the legislature didn't
Didn't
anticipate
this,
the
yeah.
pandemic and, all that money that came from the federal government.
Well, and a significant amount of money was spent on things that you would normally not spend on, like
Correct.
the HVAC and the PPE and stuff. I mean, a normal budget wouldn't account for any of those expenditures.
I do appreciate you keeping an eye on it. Obviously, we came so close that you must have had it in mind, so I appreciate that.
And I want to thank Taylor and his company too, because initially it was more than this, a fraction of a percent.
Yeah.
It was the 500,000 fine. We got it
It's like
down to
1.5,
200,000.
right? And you got it down to
Very good.
Yeah,
6.3.
said, let's look at a little bit. more
Yeah.
carefully.
So we didn't spend it on the teachers and now the state wants to take even more.
I know, how is it going?
Not give it to the teachers.
They want to
I
penalize
know, right?
us for.
Right.
So
Who-
yeah.
The fine is going to be paid to whom?
So they'll just withhold the money because they don't want to, the money, it doesn't
So
really
they would
exist. in
withhold it and
banking.
not give it to us in the
Right,
form of
right.
funding, right?
So
Instead of
the-
us writing a check.
The more
It would
creative
give us
financing.
less that amount, yeah.
The next agenda item, is an exemption.
Yes, and we'll have you speak on that. First, I need a motion to approve the audited financial statement as of June 30th, 2023. Do I have, okay, thank you, Mrs. Gill. And thank you, Mr. Chang. With that roll call, Mrs. Lamb,
Aye.
Mrs. Chan,
Aye.
Mrs. Gill.
Aye.
Mr. Chang.
Aye.
Aye for Mrs. Ryan, student board member, Megan Choi.
Aye.
Thank you. I'd like to turn it back over to Dr. Michael Lynn to present the 41371 exemption application to the board for approval.
Thank you, President Ryan. Item 12B is an action item to approve an exemption application to address the audit findings stated in Ed Code related to Ed Code 41372. This audit finding was the result of one-time pandemic funds that proportionally reduced the percentage of expenditures on teacher salaries to below 55% of total expenditures. It is recommended that the board approve the exemption application for submission to the County Office of Education.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Lamb. Thank you, Mrs. Gill. And with that, roll call, Mrs. Lamb,
Aye.
Mrs. Chan,
Aye.
Mrs. Gill,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, aye, student board member.
Aye.
Thank you. I'd like to turn it back to Dr. Lynn, who will present resolution number 12 for approval. Oh, it's for you?
Oh, no, I was thanking him.
Oh,
As he was
thank
leaving.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good night.
Resolution number 12, to repay a portion of the 2017 Certificate of Participation, or COP. Dr. Michael Lynn.
Thank you, President Ryan. Item 12C is to approve resolution number 12 to prepay a portion of the 2017 Certificate of Participation with the restricted state matching dollars in Fund 35. It is projected that a pro rata pay down using the restricted state matching dollars in Fund 35 will save the district about $4 million over the next 17 years. It is recommended that the board approve with a roll call vote the prepayment of the COP in the amount of $2.8 million and clear out the state matching fund in Fund 35.
Okay, I make the motion. Do I have a second?
I move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. Roll call, Mrs. Lamb,
Aye.
Mrs. John.
I, but I had a question.
Okay,
So what becomes our annual payment after this?
I actually have the spreadsheet.
Of course you do. Is it a pie chart too?
So we have
And
Marina Rowland. I don't
Yes.
know if you have those numbers?
she's
Okay.
one of our attorneys, by the way.
She's our bond attorney for the COP.
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Ann Lamarena Rolene. I'm a partner at Norton Rose Fulbright. I served as bond counsel back in 2017 with respect to the issuance of the COPs. Originally, the total principal and interest owed was $8.4 million. After a pro rata pay down, the total principal and interest owed would be around $4.3 million, so saving a difference of around $4 million.
And then does that have what impact, if at all, does that have on the annual payment we're making in terms of our budget then? Do we know?
So it varies based on the year because of different principal and interest amounts, but it's around. These are semi-annual, so you're making me do math.
I have the spreadsheet. It's just, I don't have it.
Sorry.
But we can get it to the board.
$100,000 a year.
Okay, so because right now we're about 450.
Yeah, it's close to $500,000 a year is the payment now, and it would go down.
It's gonna,
right?
yes.
To about
Commensurate, yeah.
200,000,
Right.
depending on
So
the.
let me get you the exact payback schedule
Mhm.
for the remaining of the term of this loan.
That essentially frees up our general funds.
That's the whole purpose.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And because we have a state shortfall in general fund right now, this is a really timely
Yeah.
prepayment.
Actually, the first 3 years,
Thank you.
we did not really pay the interest, the donor.
yeah, the
Right,
donor
right. Paid
paid.
down a significant
Yeah,
Mhm.
amount.
We're
of
so
it.
grateful to that
very
donor.
grateful.
The board also set aside a $1.5 million in committed funds to pay the COP. Because certainly we want to protect our ability to pay. We don't want it to default on anything and then risk our credit rating.
And there's no penalties for prepayment.
There's not that I know of.
No, there are no, the COP was originally issued thinking that if the district were successful in a subsequent bond election, that they could prepay without any penalty. And so the first call date was back in 2019.
Mhm.
So I guess in reference back to earlier when we were looking at the numbers, it kind of becomes a wash, right? Because if the board ends up putting some of that money towards prepayment again, which I realize isn't in there.
It's in there.
It isn't.
Yeah,
It is in there?
Yeah,
Okay.
It's
It's in
Yeah.
there.
Part of the 200.
5.5.
It's
Yeah,
two
it's the
point
above.
seven million, but we're asking the board for 2.8.
They deducted
because
it.
Okay, they did
Yeah.
deduct.
That's
it.
why they
That's
got
right.
to 140.
we have
So-
interest income that's going to be added to the 2.7. So it's better to pay off, clear out 135 and not have to, deal with that.
Right, and then, okay, thank you.
That's why LPA had it on their list, pay off of the COP at 5.5.
5.5 is still listed as the current amount, but above that, there's something in black that says 2.7 million.
Yeah.
There's right below that's the state matching, and on top is the 2.7. That should be 2.8 upon the board's approval of this resolution.
Great, thank you.
I'm gonna repeat our roll call. Mrs. Lamb.
Aye.
Mrs. Chong.
Aye.
Mrs. Gill.
Aye.
Mr. Chang.
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, aye. Student board member.
Aye.
Thank you. I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent Dr. Delatorre for approval of resolution number 13. This is our biannual governing board election.
Yes, as required by the Recorder's Office, we have to bring forward to the Board of Education a resolution ordering a governing board member election due to the fact that two current members of our Board of Education, their terms are about to expire in November. And so we needed to get this done by April 30th, which is why we're bringing it to you today on the 23rd.
All right, so with that, is there a motion to approve resolution number 13 to order a biannual governing board election?
Move
Yep.
to,
Go ahead.
Thank you,
I'll
Mrs.
move to approve.
Thank you, Mrs. Lamb.
A second.
Thank you, Mrs. John. All right,
Good
with
question.
that, go
I just
ahead.
had a little question. On the actual resolution, the number was left out.
The two instead of.
Yeah, the two.
It's right here.
Oh, is it there?
It says right there.
I just didn't have it.
Members shall be elected.
Okay,
Right here.
it's there. Okay, thank you.
Roll call, Mrs. Lamb,
Aye.
Mrs. John,
Aye.
Mrs. Gill,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, I, student board member.
Aye.
Thank you. Board superintendent discussion items, Mr. Chang, Dr. Delatorre, do you have any other further discussion items?
How was your trip?
Oh, very, very good, yeah.
All right, excellent, and
Yeah.
all right, with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting and have everybody go home.
Thank you.
Thank you.